Guys, Be Different podcast, Wednesday, February 7th, 2018. We're getting to the end of the regular season, and the Xavier Musketeers, they're keeping it entertaining these days. Andy Mack Williams is with us, kicking it old school with the Andy Mack Williams once again in that beautiful Xavier blue sweater right there. And Andy, I know you're feeling fantastic today. Muskies win 2 thrillers, especially when you look at the last one against Butler. I know you were excited, Andy. I know you were excited coming in today.
I'm so excited that I haven't taken the sweater off since our last podcast. It's a lucky deal. I mean, they came back with that Houdini back from the dead 4-point play in the Georgetown game at Cintas the other day.
Happen? How do you let that happen? How do you allow a 4-point play if you're Georgetown? I mean, you're in a position to win a big-time game on the road at Cintas Center against one of the best teams in the country, and you foul Trayvon Blewett on a 3-point shot. I mean, how do you do that?
You know, I've never seen a 4-point play in the Big East other than Andrew Rousey, that little midget guard for Marquette who flops every time he gets the ball.
So
He's
aggressive.
on the floor. I mean, I've seen 4-point plays out of Rousey, but have you ever seen a 4-point play in a situation like that? End of regulation, Xavier down 4 with 26 seconds left. Chris Mack called the play. He called the play. Most coaches, in their infinite wisdom, would go with the standard logic in that they'd attack the basket for a quick 2.
Not Chris Mack.
Not Chris Mack.
He's a wizard.
He thought his best option was a 3-pointer from Trayvon Blewett because it's a layup for that guy if it's open. And Georgetown knew that it was probably going to go to Blewett, so they guarded him hard, and Mosley went out and fouled him. Actually, that was after the shot. That should have been a 2-shot free throw opportunity. But
I like that. So they should have won the game.
Should have been a 5-point
play.
Should have been a 5-point play.
Interesting.
Yeah, my son Brian gave me that little tidbit, and you're
pretty
right.
good. Thank you.
Right. It was after the play.
Brian's a relatively smart guy.
Brian is an
He's got good
emergency room
genes.
doctor,
He's got great
and
genes.
he's saving humanity. He's doing a great job. But and nonetheless, maybe the best possession was the defensive possession after that for Xavier, when Georgetown still had the trump card. It was a tie ball game. They had the ball, and the shot clock was off, and Mack comes out with like a trapping 2-3 zone. He was not going to let the Georgetown point guard sit there and rock or dribble at the top and call the shot. And they played great defense. I mean, it was like their hair was on fire. And he went with Scruggs and Gooden and Kaiser Gates and Najee Marshall and Tyreek Jones. Great defensive lineup. And Georgetown threw up a bad shot. And he used that same defense again when Xavier had the 4-point lead, or no, the 3-point lead late in the overtime. And it worked again. They threw up another bad shot. So I give Chris a lot of credit. Obviously, the Muskies sort of ginned it up in the overtime. They came back and tied it, and then they hit 10 straight free throws. No field goals for Xavier at all in the OT. Look, Georgetown looked fatigued and frustrated. They were pretty well done, but Xavier put the hammer down with 10 straight free throws.
Do you have any concerns with Jesse Govan having 23 and 9 and Marcus Derrickson getting 19 and 15? I mean, the two guys, obviously, for Georgetown, really they're only guys that could have allowed them to stay in the game, and they were able to do it.
Well, thank God that Tyreek Jones played a monster game and basically fouled Govan out of the ball game. And Govan was out early in the OT, and that helped a lot without having the two big guys to play high-low and dominate the boards inside. But Tyreek was off the charts. I thought he played an excellent ball game. 15 points. He went to the free throw line in pressure situations and hit 4 for 4 in the OT. That allowed Xavier to go inside because they had faith that Tyreek, who'd had some struggles lately physically, etc. Actually, he didn't play in the Butler game because of a collision with Sean O'Mara in practice. Chris Mack indicates, though, that Tyreek should be back, he said, soon. Hopefully that means Creighton on Saturday because they're going to need him out there in that crazy atmosphere in Omaha.
Coach Mack never gives any indication as to what's going on with players when they do get injured. He never gives you any information. Never does. That's just his deal. He's done that
he
from
doesn't
the
have to. He doesn't have to. What does it do to him to let the other coach know?
I would like to
an
know.
hour or two in advance that somebody's not going to play? What does that do?
Do you have insider information?
Well, I was there at Butler, and I happened to watch Tyreek walk around with a sling on his left arm. And Tom Iser, the SID, who's a great human being, he's also he's of the Mack philosophy. He told me it was a head injury. And I mean, they may be an additional head injury, but definitely there's something wrong with his left arm. It's not a break. It might be like a bruise or whatever. I would expect Tyreek to play in Omaha against Creighton.
Even though he was in a sling on Tuesday evening at Butler. In a sling, he'll be there on Saturday. Andy Mack marks it down.
I don't know about that. I hope. All I can say is I hope so, because Tyreek played a super game against that big Justin Patton goon of Creighton out in Omaha last year. He and Quentin Gooden were fantastic in that close Xavier win at CenturyLink last year, and. Creighton, we're getting ahead of ourselves. They're struggling at the 5 because of the injury to our friend Martin Krampel. He's out for the year.
Krampus, Martin Krampus.
Who was horrible, actually, against Xavier at Cintas. So maybe it would have been better to have him in the lineup, because he's sort of like a light cavalry guy. You can push him around.
Well, we got to revert back to the game last night, because it was another thriller for Xavier. You get the win against Georgetown. Fortunately, because of that Trayvon Blewett 4-point play, you win in overtime. Then after that game at the Cintas Center, now you have to go on the road at Butler, and then they'll follow that up with going away at Creighton in Omaha on Saturday. But you go to that game against Butler. Butler 12-1 at home this year, the winner of 4 games in a row. Tyreek Jones is in a sling. Hinkle Fieldhouse is filled up to maximum capacity. I mean, it looks like a game that Xavier might drop, and they were able to get it done.
The student section was animated last night at the Hinkle Fieldhouse in Indianapolis. They chanted from the warm-up right through the end of the game, JP sucks, JP sucks. It was constant. It was very obnoxious. And JP didn't have a great game, but he did hit some key free throws. And I expected JP to drop a big number, but he was certainly useful in the victory. And Xavier started out like a house of fire. I think they led by 18, 29-11, and you knew it wasn't going to be that easy, because Butler does play well at home. Although they're the Indianapolis Star, big headlines, Butler has put the Big East on notice. The Butler Bulldogs are in high gear, and Xavier was a 3-point underdog. Ken Pomeroy had them losing the game. In Vegas, they were a 3-point dog. And I thought it was a really gritty road win, in that Indianapolis Butler was down 7 with about 1:20 to play in regulation, and Lavelle Jordan's a pretty good coach, first-year head coach at Butler, and Keelan Martin dropped 34, but Xavier doubled him in the last 2 or 3 minutes of the game, and in came Sean McDermott, that sort of skinny, bony wing for Butler. He can shoot the 3, and they went right to the second option, and McDermott just drained it. I mean, he hit, I think, 5 for 6 from 3-point range, so that's dangerous. If that other guy, the GW transfer, Jorgensen, if he had played a halfway decent game, Xavier's in deep trouble. But Baldwin was all right. Martin was off the charts. The net wasn't even moving on his free throws, on his 3-point. When Xavier singled up on him, and Najee Marshall, I thought, did a really good defensive job. Gates moved in and took him some of the possessions. Najee was in his face all night long, and he just hit him. I mean, he's a great, great player.
Yeah, Najee was big, especially at the end of the game, and then in overtime after Baldwin hit that 3-point shot. And Chris Mack alluded to it in the post-game press conference. I was listening when he was talking with Byron and Joe in post-game. Those guys were deflated. I mean, you're up 7 points with less than 2 minutes to go. You're on the road. You think you have the game all wrapped up. Butler and Baldwin makes that big 3-point shot to go into overtime, and now you got to go win the game. Once again, Butler has all the momentum, and who hits the 3-point shot to start in overtime is Najee Marshall, the freshman, stepping up on the road.
And Butler did not guard him. He was open, sort of at the top of the circle, and there was nobody within 10 feet, and he was told, if you're open like that, shoot it, and he did. He drained it. Najee played well. I mean, it had to be frustrating to guard as hard as he did and see Martin drop 34. and it was a pretty efficient 34. But Marshall played one of his best games of the year. He'd played well against Butler at Cintas in that earlier victory, but Najee's numbers, he was back in the starting lineup. He scored 15. He had 6 rebounds, and he's a gutsy driver. When he has a crease to the basket, he doesn't care who's in front of him or around him. He just goes for it.
Well, go ahead. Greg. Wow, you were coming in hot over there. I didn't see.
I'm pretty excited about one thing.
Yeah, go ahead, Greg.
Last 7 games, Paul Scruggs.
Yeah.
17 assists, 4 turnovers. That is awesome.
They talked so much about how Butler had improved eons from the January game at Cintas when Xavier sort of controlled them. It was a semi-close game, but Xavier won like 84-79. Xavier has improved light years, in my opinion, from early January in that the depth has come to the fore. And you said it right there. Paul Scruggs is being used now in tandem with Quentin Gooden. They're playing a lot together. They looked real uncomfortable together earlier in the year, 2 young, basically point guards trying to find out what their role is when they play together. Defensively, Scruggs is he gets beat off the dribble now and then, but he is tough. He is physically imposing.
Reminds me a lot of myself back in my playing.
That's
long, lengthy, really solid athleticism. A guy that you want to put on an island
really
defensively because it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I told Coach Mack, I said, pack line. I don't need a.
Yeah, what?
It's me and my man. I can stay in front of him.
Don't limit me. Don't limit me to a pack line. I want to be out in his face. I want to D up on that guy.
Absolutely. No, I did. I get him to attack. I'd attack their pivot foot. I'd push him out with my strength. I had great core strength, wide shoulders. That's what Paul Scruggs has.
And I kind of remember that a little.
Yeah,
bit,
vaguely.
maybe.
But Andy, the player of
you're
the game,
more ripped physically than Najee Marshall.
I don't think there's
you are more ripped.
There's no doubt. There's no doubt about that. I eat ramen noodles every day.
He is.
Shout out to Dan Redford on that, who finally told me that ramen noodles are courtesy of the Japanese culture. So shout out to the Japanese. You guys make a hell of a ramen. And that's why I'm so ripped up.
Najee and Scruggs and Gooden are all ripped, but you are ripped plus. They're Adonises, but
absolutely.
You are whatever the next, maybe the
Herculean
would be Samsonian.
Yeah.
Samsonian.
Yeah, I've been
Samson.
Yeah, some people. Well, a lot of people have told me I'm like a mixture between Kevin Hart when he had that big photo on Men's Health magazine and The Rock. Right in between those two is I think where my physique lies.
To turn down the opacity a little bit?
Actually,
we're not talking about pigment.
Okay.
We're not talking about pigment. We're talking about just overall girth and size.
Girth and size, huh?
Yeah. Who else is girthy? Is Trayvon Blewett. Trayvon Blewett.
Oh, wait a minute now.
Trayvon Blewett is real girthy, Andy.
Trayvon Blewett hit a couple of rainbow threes last night that were off the charts. His usual spot is not at the top of the key, but that's what he was given late in regulation. He drained a rainbow three from maybe 24, 25 feet that put Xavier up 7. I thought the game was over. I mean, Done. It was 87-80 when that went through, and the minute he released it, before it had hit the top of the arc, the trajectory, that's in. And he did it again in overtime to put Xavier up, I think, 5.
The shot he hit in overtime was
deep.
That was from your house on the west side,
deep.
Andy.
It was deep.
And that's his last game in Indianapolis against Butler.
He wanted to show off to the troops.
But as I say, that's his last game until he plays either for or against the Indiana Pacers in the NBA in Indianapolis. Because he will be back.
He will be back.
He will be back. That guy.
And I think
what a magic shooter.
That overtime game is such like a good, I don't know what we want to call it, but it's just how Trayvon Blewett has played all year. I mean, he goes to the free throw line in overtime. He makes the first free throw. Misses the second one, gets the rebound, then hits a tough 2. And then Xavier gets a stop. They come back down. I mean, he shoots a shot 3 feet in front of half court like it's no problem. I mean, that's just what Trayvon Blewett does. That's what he does. He's a winner.
And the defenses go right at him early. He's job number 1. He is option number 1. And he feels it out in the first half. He had 6 in the first half, did not shoot it well. They were really stalking him at the 3-point line. He dropped 20 points in the second half in the overtime. He missed a couple shots, but he was flat out great down the stretch, and we missed the boat if we don't talk about the bigs. Karem Cantor and Sean O'Mara, they both got more minutes because of Tyreek's injury.
Didn't matter.
And strangely,
Didn't
it maybe
matter.
put them in a better offensive mojo, playing more minutes.
Yeah, they weren't worried about coming out.
Yep.
They were allowed to play, and they were both great. Graham Cantor, he had 22 points?
22 points
And
for
O'Mara had 14.
Cantor. He was 10 for 15 from the field, and he and O'Mara fouled out both of the Butler big guys. Weidman was gone late in the regulation, and Nate Fowler, the Moeller kid, fouled out in overtime. They had no answer for either of those guys. That's a total of 37 points on 15 for 20 shooting for those two. I mean, that's 75%.
It's good math.
That's good math.
It's great math.
Quick on the back of the envelope, but I came up with it.
There's a lot of people out there excited now, Andy, about the Xavier Musketeers. Joe Lenardi, latest bracketology, had the Musketeers as a 1 seed. You have that bracket preview show over the weekend. You'd likely see Xavier as that number 1 seed as well. A lot of attention for these guys, Andy. A lot of attention for the Xavier Musketeers, which the Muskies don't always get. But right now, they're in a position where everyone's talking about them. Everywhere you go, it's how good are these Xavier Musketeers? Final Four favorites, possible national championship contenders. That's all I'm seeing, Andy. That's all I see.
You know, Joey Brackets, Joe Lenardi from St. Joseph's University is an East Coast bias guy. He's a Philadelphia guy. I think he's working probably with money under the table from Jay Wright at Villanova. And no doubt Duke and Coach K have given him some money to try to rope-a-dope Xavier, to try to overhype the Musketeers. So he gives them an obligatory 1 seed in early February to try to set them up. And, I don't appreciate it. First off, there's no way when we get to Selection Sunday, they're going to give 2 Big East teams a 1 seed. It's either going to be Villanova, probably, or Xavier. And the only way Xavier's going to get a 1 seed when it really matters on Selection Sunday is if they beat Villanova here and they either avoid Villanova in the Big East tournament or beat them again on a neutral floor. And I don't know what the odds are of that. Especially if Villanova gets Phil Booth back, which apparently they will. I would think he probably would not play here in Cincinnati, but he'll be ready for the Big East tournament. So it's a rope-a-dope deal, and Blewett handled it really well after the game at Butler. He said, hey, this group, the veterans learned a lot in 2016 when they were a high seed and everybody they beat Villanova at Cintas in February, and then it was all downhill. This group, Sean O'Mara, myself, JP, Kaiser Gates, the guys who all played in those games, that we don't, that rating stuff is all noise to us. We are focused and conserving our energy for the games. We are not going, that is a waste of our time and energy to get all caught up in that hype stuff, especially, the thing CBS does. It's interesting on Sunday. It's a top 16 NCAA seed, a snapshot 4 weeks in advance of Selection Sunday. And, hey, give me a 2 seed in the NCAA tournament. That's fine, because as a result of the 2 seed, Xavier's going to get a really good geographical location. Obviously, they'll get a 15 in the first round that they should be able to beat on 3 or 4 cylinders. And I think it's important that they go to like Pittsburgh, Detroit, Charlotte, or Nashville instead of the Western first weekend sites.
Doesn't matter. Give Trayvon Blewett a basketball and a rim and some people in the stands to watch him, and the Musketeers are going to be just fine. Andy, also, I say keep giving them more attention. I love attention. And I think the guys on Xavier love attention. I think you just keep riding them in. Chris Mack loves attention. He loves attention. Keeps boosting his stack for that Louisville job next year. Okay, upcoming game at Creighton.
That Louisville thing is a quagmire. There are so many problems. There are landmines all over the place in Louisville.
From Porcini's. All right,
that Gus Johnson started the ball rolling. That guy's another East Coast bias guy.
Yeah.
He would love to screw up Xavier.
I
like Gus. He's an exciting announcer, but Xavier's like for the world with him announcing.
I enjoyed it.
He's like a pestilence when it comes to Xavier.
Yeah, I enjoyed a glass of scotch with him one time in Cleveland.
Yeah.
But
remember a game where
I remember a
game.
He said, "Ice cold, ice cold. Give me another one."
First round NCAA tournament 2004, Xavier against Louisville. Gus is doing the game. Really exciting announcer. Louisville goes up like 16 early in the second half, and he goes, Louisville Cardinals too easy against the Xavier team as Taekwon Dean does a crossover dribble layup. Good. Xavier's all done. Whoa, this Louisville team, this Cardinal team's got it going. Boom. Dolman hits about 15 threes in a row. We're back in the lead. We crush them like a grape.
That's fantastic.
That was great. I loved it.
You can't write that up, Andy Mack.
Taekwon Dean. It's too easy for him against the Xavier team. Dolman, boom, boom, boom.
There was a 4-point play in that game also.
Thank you for sharing that.
I wouldn't doubt it.
I believe Diedrich Finn hit one from the corner.
Diedrich Finn and
The former number 12.
Before-
he wore 12 before Papa Red.
before he stole the dog and
Before
got
the
knocked
dog
off
stealing.
the team.
Yes.
But
Yes.
what was it? They had the flopping Garcia guy on that team for Louisville, and Rick Pitino was so PO'd he didn't even do his radio show. He sent the former Chicago Bull guy out there. Who's his assistant? I can't think of the guy's name offhand. But he immediately goes.
I don't know.
He was really politic on the post game interview. He goes, that Xavier team, we play them 10 times, we beat them 9. Like, what game did you watch?
Well, the one
That
that
one.
one. Lose.
All right,
that
lastly.
Xavier team, boo, boo, boo.
All right, Andy. Lastly, game at Creighton on Saturday. Last game, a complete blowout. Domination by the Xavier Musketeers, 92-70 at the Cintas Center. It should be the same thing again in Omaha, correct?
Well, Omaha's a different animal. For Creighton is undefeated on their home floor. They haven't played Villanova yet. I don't think they've played Seton Hall out there yet. But Xavier's had some good luck in the New Big East at Creighton and before that. And with the Crumples injury, they do have some difficulties and some issues at the 5. They have taken the red shirt off Epperson, the big freshman Aussie. He's 6'11". And Ronnie Harrell is getting more time. He's a good player, but he's sort of like a better as a sixth man spare part. Then they got Toby Hegner and some grad transfer Suarez. So Xavier, hopefully Tyreek will be able to play because I think the three-headed center monster for Xavier could really do a lot of collective business against that Creighton team. And Creighton's also a little all at sea at the point. Mintz has been starting, the sophomore, but Caleb Joseph, the Syracuse transfer, is getting more time. And Omaha's, it'll be sold out, 17,000 plus at the CenturyLink Center. And they'll be letting it fly.
Let it roll.
They've got
Let
the
it
great
roll.
wings. They got Marcus Foster. They get Kyrie Thomas did nothing here against Xavier.
He was absent.
He was absent. He was AWOL. He was AWOL for the game. But I expect it to be close. If Xavier does win that game Saturday, they probably will get a number 1 seed in that CBS snapshot on Sunday. If they don't, whenever Xavier stumbles, they've won 7 in a row now. The national pundits and the coaches and every people, they punish Xavier like with a really sharp switch. They knock them down 4, 5, 6. Everybody else gets the benefit. Oh, it's a tough conference. Everybody loses on them. Xavier loses, boom, they go to the back of the bus.
I think it's a different year. I think there's more respect for this team. I think this is a better team. This is a deeper team. It's a more talented team. It's a vet. I mean, they got all the pieces. I think there's a lot of respect. That's why so many people are talking about them. And those expectations, at least to this point of the season, have not bothered the Musketeers one bit. So I expect these guys to keep winning. They're going on the road and winning games, which most Xavier teams in the past haven't been able to do in the Big East. I mean, they're getting team's best shot, and they're running on the road.
You're right.
I mean, they're getting the best shots from everybody.
I mean, sold out at Butler last night with a rabid crowd and a team that had a 4-game winning streak. And Butler had been giving up like 60 points a game. Granted, they'd played DePaul twice, St. John's, and Marquette in that span. Not exactly the creme de la creme of the league. But you're right. I mean, this team's got depth. They've got experience. They've got flexibility. They have great coaching. They have good focus. And they've shown that in pressure situations, they can play lockdown, junkyard dog defense, too. And they'd rather, outscore people. It's more fun that way. But, they can dig in and play defense in the depth. I mean, a lot of coaches, we played 10, 11 guys. Xavier has a quality 9-man rotation when everybody's healthy.
Yep. All right, Andy, the Musketeers are looking good. We appreciate you coming in, as always, analyzing, breaking it down from every angle. We will be watching on Saturday. We'll be paying attention to the preview of the NCAA tournament seeding on Sunday, and we'll get you back here on Wednesday to talk Seton Hall and Villanova, who's coming to the Cintas Center next week.
Yeah, Xavier Creighton is Saturday, 2:30 Eastern on Channel 19, WXIX locally, and then the CBS Snapshot top 16 NCAA seed thing is 12:30 to 1 Eastern on the CBS network.
There we go.
And the Creighton AD Rasmussen is the chairman of the selection committee.
Rasmussen.
Yep.
Love Rasmussen.
Bruce.
Big fan.
Yeah, I
Love
think
the
it's
tea.
Bruce.
Love the tea. Great Rasmussen tea.
Yep.
All right, Andy, Mack, thank you very much. Xavier, after 2 overtime thrillers, going back on the road for me, the recruits, Andy, Mack, Williams. Guys, we're out of here. We'll see you next time.
Thanks, Andy.
Thank you, Andy.
Thank you.
He's
Thank
the
you.
man.
Thank you.